Hey y'all, it's Flinny here and welcome to my quiver of boots and my skis. So these videos, parts 1 and parts 2, will discuss an overview of the boots, the bindings, and the whole system and why I pick one for wear. But in summary, these guys are what I call my trail boots. I use them mainly in trails or maybe on the beach and other things like that, so it's not that steep or hard. Move up into backcountry terrain, and then finally the inbound downhill boots, which we'll talk about some more on all that. Notice that these all can kind of slide around in different whatever terrain you go on, but I tend to like to pick if I'm doing mellow trails or going inbounds to Cannon or to Whiteface in the Adirondacks, just whatever you want to do. So that's where we are. Now let's jump into it, and we're going to go into each boot and its appropriate ski, and let's just remember to get out there and earn your turns. Welcome to the trail boots. These are for basic cross-country skiing, maybe a little bit off track, but mainly in trail, inbounds, mellow, fun, pleasant day, think cross-country skiing. But I will admit, back in the day, I skied in these like everywhere. The nice thing about these old Merrells, which unfortunately are a little too small, so I can't wear them anymore, so that's why they're kind of still beat up and I haven't repaired them. But anyway, I digress. We used to go ice climbing up at Mount Washington with our skis on our back, put flexible crampons on these, and just go for it. So very versatile, the old classic 3-pin. So an old stay, but since these got to be too small, about 10 years ago, I went up for the new tech, new Nordic norm. These are the backcountry edition, so they're a little bit wider and beefier than the regular NNN, and they're finding they're pretty common. These are a Rossignol boot, and I found they were very comfortable and they work really well. It's faux leather, but it's just another option. And then just recently, my new addition is to kind of replace these guys, is going back to the 3-pin with the old leather Merrell. So you can find leather boots out there, but again, it's getting harder and harder to find 3-pin bindings. We'll show you with the skis that they go in the bindings, where they call it a 3-pin. But these are, again, the biggest value to this boot, and this is what I alluded to, is to be able to go off trail. If you want to hike in them for a while or a mile, or ski up, put your skis on your back and hike up, you just can't use these BC-NNNs. I just wouldn't. There's a real thin plastic there, so just beware that if you try to go off piste, you'll just rip out your bindings, and then what good are they? So that's the only challenge with these. Stick to BC-NNN if you're just going to be in the skis the whole time, whether you're going to an area or you're just going to a park and it's all snow and you're going to stay in the skis, are fine. But if you need to snowshoe, ice climb, all the other crazy stuff, you'll be back to these guys. So now let's take a little deeper dive with each one and the appropriate ski with it.
Sorry, I'm messing up your bill.
So here's my BC-NNN boot with some great old Fischer waxable skis. What I mean by waxable is, see, there's a big wax base that you end up having to put old school wax on it. Great because it goes fast and you can't really do anything. There's nothing to slow it down. It really goes well. You'll notice it's easier with this as I have a little gizmo here. You can see there's what we call a little bit of a wax pocket. So there's a little camber in this ski that allows us, when we put weight on it, it allows me to accelerate and make the whole thing work. So great for getting out and about. You'll notice the nice thing about these automatic Rotafella bindings is you can push down and it comes right off. So really nice feature of that. You'll notice that the skis and the bindings have a pretty nice capability. When I just push on these are what they call the auto version, and you can see this bar just clips right into that. The challenge that you'll find with these boots, even though they're good, is again the ability to drive turns is a little dodgier. It's just, and it's not the boot itself, it's the binding attachment. But you'll get more of that as we go further, as we move to taking this boot to the next level up. Okay, trails with a twist, with this a little icy or sketchier. You want to take a little bit no prisoners. The conditions change, definitely Sierras or out west where it goes from nice frozen powder to the sun where it all turns to slush and gook. Waxing is a huge hassle, so you go waxless. Plus, these have a nice metal edge, which give me a little bit of security when I'm going down or when it gets a little sketchy, and it's just nice. These tend to be a little bit shorter, just as a little more navigate in the woods, but these are really great. You'll notice the same Rossignol bindings, but they're with a manual option. I guess it doesn't really matter. I guess I kind of like it because I could kind of know what's happening, but again, it's the same idea. When you close it, you'll see those come over the binding that way. So it's a great system. I ski in these all the time in New England area just because of the variable conditions. It's really good in 10 degrees and cold to go skiing and waxing. So these work great. Pretty simple, just put it in, clip it down, and again you can see we have a nice flex so it gets by. But the big downside to this boot, even with these great skis, is for going down, they're not as good as 3-pin. I shall show you why in just a second. Because when I put my weight down on this, it closes the wax pocket, which is good. But I have to rely on just the whole binding, and it sits on top of it. It doesn't really turn the ski that well. You can definitely do it, but it's really tricky. So it's a lot harder to actually telemark turn, or even any turn in these kinds of boots. It's pretty flexible side to side, but once you get up high, because that's what you're doing, you're bending, it's hard to get just this little piece to drive the turn. So that's my only downside with this, is that these are more over hill and dale and a little bit of down. If you want to do 50-50, that's where we're going to the next boot. Trails / backcountry / down, the epitome of awesomeness, in my opinion. So let's get to it. I go going way back with my classic Fischer E99s. These are very narrow, they're skinny, they're old, but they still work great today. The bottom of the skis you can see is a fish scale, just like those Rossis I just showed you. The nice little edge there. They're probably a little rusty because I stink at taking care of them, but these are awesome. These are just straightforward 3-pin bindings. Let's get a little bit closer, and you can see right in there is the 3 pins. That's why they call them, and that's where those go in. So that's the first part. The good thing about these beefier versions, you'll see a lot of these traditional bindings are a little bit wimpier. They have just a bail. You really want the flat part, and I'll show you why when we put this in. But this binding is very similar to the backcountry New Nordic norms that we just showed you, but there's a subtle twist. Sometimes older is better. And one thing that's noticed is they always mount them, it's probably hard to see. There you go with the lighting. There's a little arrow, which is which foot is it? This is for the right foot, hence the right boot, where the other skis, you can switch and swap. There's no right or left. They're all universal, which is definitely nice. But when you use these boots, you just have to step in, get them in nicely, and you step down, and there they go. You'll notice that the boot, it has a natural bend to it, but it allows me to still do all the other good stuff, this cross-country skiing that I want. It's just that when I want to drive a turn, you'll notice there's this binding is around the front, and with my toes on it, that allows me to actually drive a turn a little bit better. So again, going down, this setup is definitely going to get you a little further. And going up, it's flexible. But again, if you're just going to be doing trails and flats, it may be a little overkill. And the BC-NNN or just a regular NNN is much more comfortable, lighter, is always lighter. But if you are going down, so for example, Lincoln Gap up in Vermont is a fun little trail, just an old road or as a new road that they don't plow. And so you just skin all the way up and then you get to go ski down. It's steep and you can bomb off into the sides. It's really fun. So definitely the ultimate in going true backcountry lightly.